Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Office Hours with Jess. This week, I will be talking about my experience and advice around TAing or being a teaching assistant, teaching fellow, graduate student instructor, whatever they call it at whatever institution you're at. So what did inspire me this week, this is some good news I wanted to share with you all, and something I've been celebrating is I did win a teaching assistant award this year by my school, which is something I'm very proud of because, as you all know, the reason why I have this channel, teaching and mentoring, really is like my true passion and why I even want to go into academia. So it means a lot that this part of my work is recognized by the school. So I thought, again, to inspire me for this week, I would put together a couple of slides on um, sort of my experience with TA and how to make the most of that experience. So first, I get this question from a lot of people is how do you even find the TA jobs? I am basically always TAing at least one or two classes. And some people say that it's really, or have the perception that it's very hard to find these TA jobs, but I actually think it's not that there's always a demand for TAs. You just kind of have to find them. It can be tricky sometimes. My biggest piece of advice is really just connecting with professors early. Like the earlier you do this, the better, because then you can kind of like get ahead of the line in terms of being considered for those open TA positions. So what I like to do is if I'm currently taking a class that I realize that I love, or is like a strength of mine or an area of interest, I immediately tell the professor that I would be interested in TAing. Maybe not at the beginning of the class, but like as the class is ending, I'll like go to their office hours. And then definitely when the course is over, I will send an email like in written words explaining like, hey, I would love to TA your course. I had such a great experience in it. And generally, if I know that their current TA is graduating, that's just like another in to be like, I just took your class. I know your TA is not going to be around next year. I would love to be considered for that position. So that's actually a way that I've gone to TA a lot of courses that I've actually taken. And, professors usually like having TAs where their TA was a student at some point. But that's not always the case. So I actually TA a lot of my advisors courses that I've actually never taken myself, just because I didn't have the time because they weren't like required coursework of mine. But that's also another avenue, is just talking to your advisor or just professors that you know really well and asking. And especially if you have like that skill set or knowledge that that class is about, I think that's also another way to open up those doors to potentially TA their courses as well. Departments will also often have like job listings or listservs where they just post a bunch of TA jobs or email out a bunch of TA jobs. So just keep your eye out on that. And me being the love of cold emailing, I always think that that is also a route. So if you don't have classes you're currently taking or professors you're connected with that are looking for TAs, you can just go on to like your university's like faculty search or whatever, or go to different departments. Like I know when I was at Yale and I was doing my master's, I like emailed like the sociology department, like not chair, but they're like academic affairs person, and that same person in the psychology department, and just like the departments that were affiliated with the undergraduate campus that I knew definitely could possibly need TAs. And like I sort of had a little bit of content knowledge about those departments, topics, and materials, and just cold emailed them and been like, hey, like, do you have a need for TAs that might not be in your department? Love to teach, that kind of stuff. So cold emailing definitely works as well. And I always say this, like, if you come across a TA opportunity and you're not 100% sure, like, oh, is this something I want to do? Is it going to be too much work? Is it like, all this stuff? I would just say just apply, because one, you never know if you're going to get it or not. And TA jobs are also not always guaranteed. So you might think you have something like locked in place, but a lot of times TA positions are dependent on like enrollment numbers. So for some reason, your class like ends up not having enough students in it, like your position could be at jeopardy. So this has actually happened to me before where I've like lost a TA position. I mean, I ended up being fine because I used that time to study for my qualifying exam, but like because of enrollment numbers, things are not always 100% guaranteed. Now, kind of more on how to, once you have a TA job, how to then like maximize your experience as a TA to really build your own teaching skills and make the most of the experience. Like you as a TA should not just be like sitting in the corner, grading homework assignments. Like you definitely want, although that might be the only thing your professor asks you to do, I would really challenge you to find ways to really make that experience rewarding so that when you could like talk about it, you can actually say that you learned some really tangible skills and built on your teaching and mentoring skills. So these are a couple of things that I always try to offer to the teaching staff and faculty whenever I teach their courses, help teach their courses. So when I always offer to help review and update the syllabus, that's a pretty easy one. Or like it seems kind of straightforward, but like this is something that I think definitely is a skill, like building a syllabus, like figuring out the structure and how to like, describe things clearly to students and helping, evolve a course, I think is a really good skill to have. My second point is something I always do, and I know it's kind of scary as a teaching assistant sometimes, but I like to offer to teach or lecture on some of the course material, or like be the like leads, like basically take over like an entire session of one of the classes. And I've done that in many of the classes that I've TA'd for. And, at first it kind of felt like daunting and challenging, but it's actually, a great experience and like gives you, again, like more to say about like, what you actually learned and kind of grew from through your TA experience. So I would also, most professors are also very open to this because that means they have one less class they need to worry about coming up with, the lesson plan for, and are always there to support you as well. Grading is also, I know, kind of like a tedious task, but something that I think does help, like learning how to like give feedback to people in a constructive and helpful way. So although it's like the most tedious part of being a TA, like I would definitely like, encourage you to be a big part in helping your professors grade the assignments. And students also really like it when they see that their TAs help grade. And then lastly, I also really use class time because sometimes like during class, it is just like the professor lecturing and I'm kind of sitting there. And rather than me just like, as tempting as it is for me to start doing other work for other reasons, I try to do like the work that I need to do for that class, whether, one of my professors actually lets me grade in her lectures, which we both think is like the most genius idea ever. But just like taking care of any like administrative stuff, updating the course website. I also always keep track of attendance and participation for every class and every student. So every time like a student talks, I'll like tally it in an Excel sheet and give that to my professors at the end of each class. And they're like, oh, wow, I didn't even realize you were tracking this the whole time. And I was like, yeah, so they appreciate that. And it helps a lot with calculating participation grades if that's necessary. Oh, and also I've included a picture here. I forgot to mention this of when I lectured a course this past, I think, fall. So again, all fun stuff to help make your experience as a TA a little more meaningful. Another big part of being a TA is holding office hours. So I would definitely encourage you to, again, use these. I mean, I started doing these things called themed office hours in one of the classes I TA'd, which then inspired this entire YouTube channel. So you never know where it can take you. But holding themed office hours so that students actually feel compelled to come, and it's not just this like, oh yeah, Jessica's free for an hour, like stop by anytime. It's more like, okay, well, I'm going to spend 30 minutes giving you all like a little mini talk on, how to get through dense readings. And then we'll save the second half for like more open questions. And then I've noticed doing that, more students actually come to office hours. because it feels like there's like a purpose. And then I also like to have one-on-ones with students, like whether this just be like offering any like, students to make appointments with me outside of office hours. But also just some of the classes TA actually require all students to meet with their TA for like 15 minutes just to get to know them and have that personal connection. And I actually really appreciate that. And it makes, I don't know, it just does make you feel more connected to the students and more approachable. So that way throughout the semester or the class or whatever, they do feel more comfortable asking you questions and asking for help. And that ultimately helps their learning experience. And thought I'd give a quick plug to Calendly, which is a great calendar tool for setting these kinds of like appointment style stuff up as a TA. So little tip there if you want to look into Calendly. And then lastly, this is something I also did in some of my classes. It works well sometimes. It just depends on the group, but I would hold extended office hours the week that any big assignment is due. So instead of just having my like 1 hour a week that I like officially have office hours, I'll be like, like on Friday afternoon, I have no plans because I'm, a homebody. I'll just be on Zoom from like 2 to 4, and anyone can just like stop by. And so having like longer chunks of time where like people can feel like they can just drop in and I'll be there on Zoom actually worked really well for some of the classes I taught. And lastly, here are just a couple of like miscellaneous tips as well. So one big thing that I learned is that you should save your evaluations. So most courses, at least require at Harvard, they require you all to submit a course evaluation at the end of each class. So your students will evaluate you as a TA, and it's important for you to keep this as some jobs in the future might even ask for, some of these evaluations. So I've started to kind of keep a little portfolio of them. Also, make sure to include details of everything you did as a TA on your CV. So don't just put like, oh, I TA'd, adolescent health in the fall of 2021. You should be like, I taught one of the lectures on substance use. I graded assignments for 15 students. I held extended office. Like every little thing that you did, you should like outline that, because that is all to just show kind of the strengths that you have in teaching, and that will all be very impressive when you go off and maybe apply to a teaching or professor job in the future. I also started doing this in some of my classes, but I would just like lead a mini stretch break. I've made a video of like giving an example of one of this earlier in this channel. But especially in long classes, because I TA'd like a 3-hour lecture class. So students would just like kind of give us the feedback, like we need ways to stay engaged. Like you can't just talk at us for 3 hours. So I would start leading mini stretch breaks in the middle of class, and students really love that. So find ways to like, I don't know, add a little bit of flavor and have some fun. And kind of like on that same note, like become friends with your students. Like obviously with some boundaries, like you don't want, like there is still, like you still are grading their assignments, but definitely like don't treat them as like people that you like, like they're your peers. Like some of them like might even be in your cohort or your class. These are your near peers. So like be like don't like have formalities with them. That's always something I say to my students. And then definitely after the class is over, I always try and stay in touch with them and tell them, we can be real friends now, even though they might be in my other classes in the future. But yeah, just that also just makes the experience very meaningful. And I love bringing little treats to my classes that I TA. For example, the last day of class of for the class I just TA'd at School of Public Health with my advisor, because the waffle maker thing became like one of my pandemic hobbies. I just baked a bunch of like waffle cakes, like funfetti waffle cakes for my class, and they all like they loved it. I should have doubled my batch. They're a hit. So little things like that are also just a fun way for you to express your gratitude and things students appreciate as well. And that's all I have around TAing. Again, this is like TAing is like the best experience. This is like why I'm here, doing what I do is like to do this kind of teaching and mentoring and interacting with students. So if you have any questions, please let me know. And thank you so much for joining me again for Office Hours with Jess.